Hey everybody, this is Captain Fool reporting for duty, giving you my weekly comic book review. So sit back and enjoy. Alright everybody, for those of you that know the drill, I go over a bunch of comic books for the week that I chose to read. Now I didn't have time to read everything, so if I missed something you think I should have read, let me know in the comments below. Also, you may disagree with me on some of my choices. If that's the case, that's alright. Let me know below. Let's just try to keep it civil. My goal is to bring back the old school yard days, where we would be in discussing what hero could beat who or what comic book was good and not. And I come armed with my trusty notes so you'll hear the paper rattle because I do it a little bit old school. I do my grading on a scale of 0 through 10, 7 being average as a 70%. So I'm using schoolyard grading. But that's not all. I also use the League of Comics Geeks to give you other people's views as well as a brief overview of the comic book as well. So let's jump right in. Hey friends, welcome to this week's weekly comic book review. If you hear some chirping in the background, it's because for some reason the birds are really noisy outside today. Well, I do enjoy doing these videos. I really enjoy it a lot, especially if you people are putting your thoughts and views in the chat below. I like that. That's my goal, is to, build a conversation, the camaraderie like we're in a comic book shop, and it sometimes gets really good in these comments, and I appreciate that. So with that said, let's start with Batman number 158. With the League of Comics Geeks has 706 rating with a 3.7. I think this is definitely an uptick from the Batman stories we've been getting recently. I gave this book an 8 out of 10, so I give it a strong rating as well. The writer is Joseph Loeb, and the penciler is Jim Lee, and of course I think that's part of the draw is Jim Lee, because we got Batman Hush 2. So we're taking a popular story, we're throwing a great art in this book, and I think that's going to really pull people in. This is definitely an anticipated sequel, that highly anticipated, I should say. And will it deliver? That's the question. Well, you know what? As expected, the art is great in this issue. I think it's off to a strong start as well, showing Hush's intelligence and how big of a threat he is. They're using Joker to show how big of a threat he is. And sometimes comic books will do that by just dismissing somebody, just really beating them down really quick. Squash, if you will, from wrestling terms. I learned that recently. Haha, my wrestling skills are going up because my little girl loves wrestling, so she wants me to watch wrestling with her, so I've been learning some stuff. This is already so much better than the Batman stories we've been getting lately. I think if you want to read Batman, this is a great starting point for you. But you know what? Let's check out some other people's views on League of Comics Geeks. I'm going to start with a bad one with a 2-star rating. Yeah, it says, despite the fact that Batman is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, I haven't read the mainline book in years. While they first announced Hush 2, I was perplexed to say the least. I haven't enjoyed a Jeff Loeb story in years, and Jim Lee interiors have been lacking, to say the least. You know what? I can understand his work hasn't been as top tier as it has been, but I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised in most cases with this book. But this art person says, not to mention, I think it's past time for Lee to move on from Scott Williams and Alex Sinclair, but in an effort to make the wait till Matt Fraction and George Jimenez run bearable, I thought I might as well pick it up. Safe to say, I didn't enjoy it. I find the original Hush story to be a complete mess of a story that exists simply to throw Bat family characters onto every page. It's a terrible mystery, and Hush as a character is about as one-dimensional as they come. Later tales from the likes of Paul Dini and Dustin did a far more interesting things with the character, and it goes on for paragraphs about complaining. Whew, that one was not well liked. You know what? Let's try another one here with a 1.5-star review. Wow, these are really counter to what popular opinion is. This is really bad. I cannot see any way this could possibly get good. I am and have been a fan of Jim Lee for years. I had to say it loud because it's in caps. Getting him on another Batman story has been a real dream of mine, but this is quite honestly the last thing I would have ever wanted.
A sequel story that no one wanted about a character that had to be revived by Paul Dini to make even mildly interesting. I am assuming that Jeff Loeb has no idea what Dini did for Hush, and that is pretty apparent with this first issue. This is going to be another vapid and meaningless Batman book, something that is apparently in high demand since we have Tom Taylor's dog ass on Detective Comics right now. You know, and that might be some truth to that. Tom Taylor probably is helping increase the sales of this book because, he's just, it's Tom Taylor. I'm not going to continue the reading of the rest of that one, but it's another one that is not liking the book. I'm going to go with one more, but this time I'm going to go with a 5-star to counter those 2 negative ones. This issue delivers on every panel with a gripping pace that never slows down and artwork that enhances the moment. The narrative momentum is relentless, moving seamlessly from one scene to the next without a single misstep. Each sequence builds tension effectively, making the stakes feel immediate and urgent. Yeah! Woo! Yeah, the artwork is exceptional, with striking compositions and a neat and a keen attention to detail. The use of shadow and contrast reinforces Gotham's atmosphere, while dynamic panel layouts keep the action fluid and engaging. Character expressions and body language convey just as much as the dialogue, adding depth to every interaction. With storytelling this refined, it's a reminder of just how compelling a Batman story can be. And as you see here, there are some widely different takes on this book. You know what? I hope you checked it out. If you did, please let me know what you think about Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee's work here on this issue. Are you on the positive side? Are you on that negative side? Or just sitting in between? Moving and shifting gears, let's talk about Justice League Unlimited number 5. It has 426 ratings with a 4.1 very positive rating on League of Comics Geeks. And I gave the book a 7.9, a pretty high rating as well. Yeah. Writer is Mark Waid, artist is Dan Moore, and as you know, I'm not a fan of Mark Waid as a person, so I think that says a lot. The clock is ticking. The keys to the mysterious super terrorist organization Inferno begin to be revealed as the Justice League realizes it's an intergalactic threat led by one of their oldest foes. Yes. Wow. As I said, not a fan of this writer, but I gotta give him props. I think this is off to a pretty good run here with this interesting team here. I have to say there's some changes here I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of that new Flash suit at all. I don't like the whole Superman team, like with Supergirl's suit and stuff. I just don't. I think it takes away from what makes them special. But it is an interesting story. Can the League figure out this new threat at Inferno in time, or will they continue to be a step behind? Airwave also makes good on his promise and betrays the team. There's decent art and a good story here. I think you might be, if you can get past the butthole that writes it, you might just enjoy this issue. Next, let's talk about a hero that won't leave you green, and that's Green Lantern number 21 with 159 ratings with a 3.7 mostly positive on League of Comics Geeks. And I gave the book a strong 8. Boy, I tell you, I think DC did good this week. Really, a lot of strong titles this week. Writer is Jeremy Adams and the artist is Jack Herbert. Yes, enter Starbreaker. Everything is emotional as Hal makes his way back to Kyle, Superboy, and Odyssey, who attempt to fend off the attacks from Sorrow and an even bigger threat known as, Starbreaker. Yes, this character. The art is very good in this issue. I really liked it. We get a guest appearance as well from Dove. So if you're a Hawk and Dove fan, hey, there you go. I always thought Dove is an underutilized character. I'd like to see more of Dove. Good story. Good issue. If you're a Green Lantern fan, where are you? If you're not reading this issue, you should be. I mean, I think Green Lantern is really good right now, and it's definitely worth checking out. Speaking of good right now and worth checking out, let's talk about Superman issue 24 with 328 ratings with a 4.0 very positive score on League of Comics Geeks. And you know what? My score is actually a little higher. I gave it an 8.1. Wow, you don't usually get a higher score from me. We have, because usually League of Comics Geeks is higher if you're familiar. By the way, there is some cool alternate covers for this issue as well, and some that are okay. The writer is Joshua Williamson, and the artist is Eddie Barrows and Eber Ferrari, which, I butchered a little bit there. No Mercy, big changes at Supercorp mean the ascent of Mercy Graves. Yes, we start to see a turn of the tide there. The backstabbing begins. Good art in this issue. Has a very good story turn. I think you would enjoy. This is an interesting story that makes you eager really to read the next issue, see what's going on. What has Mercy done? Why did she do it? Well, only time will tell. Read the issue. Time to pick up some Superman and check it out for yourself. Now, let's keep diving into the green, because I think DC should be making money this week with green because they've done some good issues. Green Arrow issue number 22 with 175 ratings with a 4.2 very positive rating. Yeah, now I don't think this was as good as the Superman issue I just talked about. I didn't give this one an 8.1, but I did give it a 7.3. The writer is Chris Condon and artist is Montos. Yes, we're continuing the story with the Freshwater Killer. Yep. So Green Arrow dives deep into his past to uncover a startling truth. But is it too late as Green Arrow races to uncover the mystery of the Freshwater Killer's origins? You know, I have to admit, it's sort of cliche. You sort of expect this. This is really nothing new. And I hate, in a way, it's, all corporations are evil kind of mentality in this issue. But being that it's Green Arrow, which you can't get much more of a socialistic style of hero, what do you expect? I mean, I can't get mad at Green Arrow because he doesn't tout conservative values and things like that. Green Arrow is a socialist, and this is the way he thinks, and that's why I read him. I like him like that. So I don't agree with him in a lot of things, and I don't always like how they write his stories depicting capitalism as bad, especially because he benefits from capitalism. Come on now. Sort of the irony of it all. Decent story, decent art, and really just some decent story progression as well. If you're a Green Arrow fan, you might enjoy this one. Yeah, there is some animal cruelty in this issue, though, as a dog gets beat up. But you think, Green Arrow would do something nicer about it, but Green Arrow locks a dog in a car. I know he did it to protect the dog or let him heal, but aren't we not supposed to be locking animals in a car? Whoopsie. Hear my notes there. But still, nonetheless, not a bad issue if you're a Green Arrow fan. If you're not a Green Arrow fan or you haven't been reading it, this is not a starting on point. You'd want to start at the beginning of the story or wait to the next issue. The next story run. Next, let's run to The Flash. No, to be honest with you, I've decided to drop reading The Flash, which is sad because Flash was doing so good under the last creative team, but this team has done nothing but drop the ball with convoluted stories and not good art. I can't read this trash anymore, so I'm going to be waiting on Flash till the next creative team before I start trying to read some more Flash again. I'm sorry, I just can't do it. Did anybody else here drop The Flash? I know some people that I've been talking to in the social media webs and things have. They said they don't like it either for some of the reasons, but you know what? Challenge me too. If you have a different view and you're enjoying it, let me know what I'm missing, whatever it may be. And speaking of mixed bags, let's talk about Black Canary. Best of the best, number 5. It has 108 ratings on Leo Comics Geeks with a 3.4 mixed rating. And I get it. This writer is Tom King. I think that says enough right there. I'm not a fan of Tom King. He usually fails to stick the landing and it goes too long. It gets boring. Artist is Ryan Sook. The battle may be lost in more ways than one in this issue. A deal with an immortal devil could be the answer to everyone's troubles. Or is Vandal Savage more trouble than he's worth? Meanwhile, Shiva and Canary fight to a standstill. Or could this be a battle to the death? And I will say there's decent art, but man, if you got a character like Black Canary and you're trying to launch and push a character forward, you should get the top tier artist you possibly can. And there's good action in this issue. But I have to give the book a 7. Originally I gave it a little bit higher, but as I started thinking about the story, it just didn't hold up. It's decent art, good action. I'm just not a fan of Tom King here. The way he writes things on the page, it's long-winded, a bit of a mess, and he usually fails to stick the landing, in my opinion. I know the Tom King fans are going to be coming out at me here, if he hasn't. Let me know what you think of that issue. Now let's talk about a turd. This turd is in the punch bowl, and that's my Amazing Spider-Man number 70 with 221 ratings with a 3.3 mixed score on League of Comics Geeks, and I gave the book a 6. And what do you think about that? 221 ratings. This is a book that's ratings used to be many more people were rating this book, which tells you most likely that a lot of people said, I'm out. The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man was the death of me reading this title, because this title has been garbage. We have the writer Joe Kelly and artist Cafu. I'll say the art is not bad here. Okay, and there's some interesting fun concepts like a Spider-Man juggernaut, but this storyline, this whole thing is trash. The 8 Deaths of Spider-Man concludes here with the Spider-Knot, and it's stupid. It's absolute garbage. Good art, crap story. This story is the whole 8 Deaths story arc. Why did it take more issues? Why did we need point something issues for a series that a storyline that sucks garbage? Peter ends up back together with that chick that nobody gives a crap about. Yeah, they're back together. Yeah. Nobody wants that. I'm telling you, it's sort of obvious. Marvel pays no attention or no care to their own fans. If anybody out there, you like this new girlfriend, let me know in the chat. What makes her special? Because the truth is this, in my opinion, from what I see, people want Peter and MJ back. They've wanted them together for years. They teased us on that for a while with another creative team, and people were loving it. And I think we see more proof of that with the Ultimate Spider-Man, with the amount of readership that story gets and the attention that book's getting compared to The Amazing Spider-Man. This is garbage. Thank goodness this story is done. Spider-Man is going to get another relaunch. That tells you something. Yep, after 70 issues, we're going to have to start with another #1 because Marvel did so much damage with this crappy story. And this storyline, problem is knowing Marvel, they're going to continue down the same path. They're going to polish this turd and start the next story with another turd. But maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I want Amazing Spider-Man to be good again. If you know me in this channel, my goal is not to complain about everything. I like the positivity if I can, but I can't provide it here. What are your thoughts on this Amazing Spider-Man book? You know what? Let's check out some of the thoughts on the League of Comics Geeks as well. First, let's take one that runs a different way than mine. This one gives it 4 stars. And with that, both the 8 Deaths arc and Volume 6 of ASM comes to a close. So let's get into it. The action and pencils by McGinnis were fantastic as always, with the impacts being felt in every character's movement. I tell you, this gave me a movement for sure. Getting to see Spider-Knot in action was surprisingly fun. Yeah, especially with his interactions with the Juggernaut. I really enjoyed Sidorak ultimately coming to the universe and Peter's aid and forging a new covenant because he was inspired by Peter's human will and spirit. And me, personally, I disagree. This was crap. Doubled nicely is the page showing everybody in Peter's life, both good and bad, that led him here, made him who he is. All really enjoyed the idea that Doom knew Peter could pull this off, which was why he made Peter the champion. No, I just think Doom didn't want to do this. We've seen so many Spider-Man stories about how the people he knows and the relationships that he has makes him what he is or leads him to be what he is. This did not do it. I'm sorry. This was just, the storyline was too dumb, too fantastical, not well written. The dialogue was crap too. I don't know about you. I'm sorry. No way. Not this issue. Not for me. Couldn't handle it. Can't take it. You might say I'm piss poor in attitude on that one. But let's look at another one here that gives it 2.5 stars. Good wrap up to a mediocre arc. Cover story, overall story just doesn't mesh well with what constitutes on being a good Spider-Man story. But there are probably more creative ways to handle it than just hogging the character with all the mystical BS. I agree with this. Can't be surprised, honestly. With the relaunch coming in 2 weeks, it's like saying goodbye to that random classmate you never really interacted with until the last day of school, and then meeting him 10 years later. Maybe you'll find some new things to connect with. Knowing this editorial, I know I won't. But God knows what's in store. Weird analogy, but this was a weird book, so it works out. Boy, you know what? I like that one. That was by Neon 1937. I'm right there with you. I just don't get it. But see, maybe your views are different there. I can't seem to find people that enjoy this. Maybe you do. Let me know maybe where I'm going wrong. The next one I want to talk about is switching from green to colors like red. We had a lot of green books this week. Red Hulk #2 with 126 ratings, 3.8, mostly positive on League of Comics Geeks, and I gave the book a 7.5, a strong start. Yeah. We have the writer Benjamin Percy and artist Jeff Shaw. Yes, we have the continuing of the story of Thunderbolt Ross trying to escape as he frees Machine Man and Deathlock, so we get some interesting things, but unfortunately, the Red Hulk burned out his power and needs the sun to power up a little bit more. It seems like it was a little short to me in that regard, but it is what it is, for stories. Good art, good action. Can they get him to the sun? Can they get themselves free from Doom? A little story progression here. Fun cast of characters, though. I mean, we're getting some characters we don't get a lot. You don't get a lot of Deathlock, and definitely don't get a lot of Machine Man. And it's an interesting team up. I'm enjoying it. I am looking forward to the next issue. Speaking forward to looking forward to issues, let's talk about one that makes that Amazing Spider-Man when we talk about look like that turd I was talking about. And that's Ultimate Spider-Man #15. 805 reviewed this book, compared to the 200 and something for Amazing Spider-Man. Wake up, Marvel. 4.3 positive rating. I gave this book a 7.5, though not the strongest book in the series, in my opinion, by far. This still shows you why it's better than what's coming out of Amazing Spider-Man. Marvel, wake the heck up. Writers Jonathan Hickman, artist is David Macia. And this book beats the Amazing Spider-Man probably in every way, except maybe art you might argue with, an art style. But I think those art styles are greatly different. The Ultimate Sandman attacks here as dust settles from the events of the recent issues. Yes, Peter, MJ, and the kids sort of moved out to be hidden away because, the identity issue from the last few issues in this story arc. And they run into, in a desert area, none other than Sandman. Pretty cool concept there. Decent issue, good art, not much story progression really though. And JJ and Ben though, I think they actually, J. Jonah Jameson and Ben, Uncle Ben, really steal the show in this issue. They get a visit from the Kingpin. And I tell you, they're ballsy. They don't back down. I really like it. But you know what? Let's check what some other people said. Another month, another phenomenal issue. And while issue 15 doesn't quite hit the highest that issue 14 did, it's still an incredible read all the same. I feel the same way as this reviewer as well. I'll check out another reviewer. This issue has a lot of good, but I'm starting to worry. I think that's a good point. I was worrying a little bit myself. The Peter-Richard team-up was pretty good, and the story and dialogue for Marco was pretty much perfect. Love this little remark about asking for help instead of smashing things. Yeah, because instead of asking for help, they automatically just get into a fight. Enjoyed the little moment of Richard and Felicia texting as well. Yeah, that's a nice touch too. The second half of this issue returns the focus to Ben and Jonah. And this is interesting. He doesn't like that component of that, which is interesting. This is where we get an update on the ramifications of their big story and alias they use. This was plain awesome. Oh, I'm sorry, this person liked this. Probably the best showing from this universe's Kingpin and Linksy will go to get done. Yeah, okay, good. That makes me happy because I agree there. Here's his complaint. My main complaint with this issue is Mary Jane. Up until the Kraven arc, I was fine with her going along with all of Peter's antics, but being weary nonetheless. To me, this seems I have to read mistypes in here and understand what they mean. I don't know what he means by that. And her trying to be mature and also seeing the righteousness of Peter's doing. But given the events of the hunt, Harry dying, Richard starting to go out and wear the suit. Okay. The family getting hunted. We need some drama. Seriously. That's true. She does seem to take to this really, really easily. That's a very good point. I'm going to give them that. I'm looking for a negative one. Here's about one of the lowest ones I can find, which is a 2.5-star review. So let's check this one out here. I'm going to read a little bit from Genesis is Here. It says, I don't think this issue is the worst Ultimate Spider-Man issue. Issue 6 still has that award, but it's the one that upsets me the most. We're 15 issues deep, and the series has finally started to focus more on Peter's family, which would be great if they did anything but validate Peter's decisions. Oh, I think that's a great point, how everybody got along and had no problem with it. Generally, every single time it seems like there's a potential conflict for Peter and MJ, it feels like all MJ does is brush it aside to flirt with Peter, and it's effing boring, and it upsets me. You know what? That's interesting. I like that she supports him, but I think that's a good point. And that's one of the reasons having MJ as part of being together with Spider-Man is so great. We have those dynamics there. How we lost all that potential, I love you, I support you, but I don't always agree with you. We don't have anymore. We just have girlfriends that don't mean anything to the reader, that come and go. Great points. And this is probably, once again, a lesson of why this Ultimate Spider-Man works and what we're getting from Amazing Spider-Man doesn't. But let me know your thoughts, because we need to move on. The next one is Daredevil 19. Has 126 ratings, and you ready for this one? A 2.6 score, mostly negative. This one I gave a 6. I didn't hate it, I think, as much as some of these readers. The writer, Salman Ahmad, artist Aaron Cooter, but I see the point that they're making. The Wages of Sin continues and ends in this issue. And that's the thing here. Daredevil has to make a choice between saving Bullseye or his good old buddy. And, how do I put this? It should be easy, right? Foggy's the guy. You save Foggy. I mean, Bullseye is a scumbag, but yet Foggy feels bad that he saved Foggy over Bullseye. Come on now, Bullseye's a crazy lunatic murderer. I don't think Foggy would feel bad about that, and that tarnishes a little bit too. Plus, I don't really believe this will be the end of Bullseye. I'm sorry, I just don't. If it does, it's not fair to Bullseye as a character. He's too good of a villain to be thrown away like they did here. And on top of that, the story doesn't really end with a win. It sort of just ends with a thud of, well, this can continue more later. And I didn't care for that. I think at this point it's went on long enough that the story needed a resolution. So let's read some other reviews. This one's a 2-star review. This may be the worst reviewed Daredevil comic in the League of Comics Geeks. So that really says something. Taking, well, let me try to read that again. Okay, put my glasses on. Talking about the entire arc now, the start was kind of cool. But that's because everything was just the status quo. Zdarsky dropped in the last issue. It had big potential. Matt's new life as a priest. Blind Spot's possible return. Fisk was gone. It had many directions, but somehow we're in the worst timeline, so we get the most boring progression out of it. Ahmed dragged one arc for 19 effing issues. I don't want to use the words he used. Filled with pointless fights, bad drama, throwing all interesting potential out the window, and making everyone that was reading this since the very start mad as F. So yeah, we officially got the first bad modern Daredevil run. And this last issue really did justice to that, because it had everything this run offer. Okay, I don't understand, but pointless fight, bad drama, and killed cool potentials. That's some really good points here. Let's read one, though, that really liked it a lot more with a 3.5-star review. Overhated run, in my opinion. The reaction this has received, both here and on other sources, has surprised me a lot. I will concede that this is not as good as some of the runs that have been made during the 21st century for this character, but what I will not concede is it's that bad. Okay, let's check out another one. A 1.5-star review. I'm disappointed. It took 2 years for this arc to end, and it ends like that? The ending of Chip Zdarsky run from Matt to be a priest is gone. Something interesting we could see, but they didn't do anything with it. I have to agree there. I really liked the idea of Seven Deadly Sins coming after Matt, but it was a drag for way too long, and the ending was meh. I believe they can actually make this story work, but they missed. Elektra not being with Matt sucks, and Kingpin missing is something I don't care. Wasn't he supposed to be gone on Devil Reign? So why bring him back? I'm so upset that Matt isn't a priest for St. Nicholas anymore. And then there's an edit. What happened to Cole North? Is he okay? 1.5-star review. Too much left open. Not enough care to continue the story. Let's go with one more 2-star review. There were some interesting ideas throughout this arc, but ultimately nothing kept me too interested. Barely 5 minutes after putting this issue down and outside of a general plot outline, I can barely remember anything that happened. Dropping this run until I start hearing better things about it. Until then, I'll be going back to reading Zdarsky's run. Huh. Well, there you go. I'm going to do one more because it's a 1-star review. I mean, it was fine. Wish it would have been Matt deciding between Jason and Foggy rather than Bullseye, since it didn't really pose much stakes. Actually, he had a choice. He chose to save Foggy and gave Bullseye a chance. Bullseye failed at that chance. Like, who's Matt gonna save? His lifelong best friend or Bullseye? Which is true. I mean, there's really no real hard choice there. They maybe should have used a character that meant more. Such a nothing ending to a nothing story. Please, Ahmed, leave this book. Woo! There's some brutal thoughts on this one. I know this is a long review video. I got a couple more comics to go, okay? But boy, I recommend checking those out. You know what? Let me know what your thoughts are on the Daredevil, because it seems like poor Daredevil could use some support there. People didn't like it. They're beating him blind on that one. Next one is Thunderbolts Doomstrike number 2. 3.7 rating, mostly positive with 104 ratings. There's also an alternate cover that's okay too. Nothing real special here. We have writer Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly and artist Tommaso Biaggi. Who knows? The Spirit of Vengeance is going to get one here. Yeah, we get an old school Spirit of Vengeance in this issue. After a devastating defeat, Bucky decides to hit Doom where it hurts. And he's bringing in some old friends to do it in the modern day. You know, I do have some gripes to pick with this issue. So here we go. How come, if you haven't noticed, anybody that knows the U.S. agent, it seems like every series that he's been in over the last few years is drawing him as a scrawny guy. The U.S. agent is supposed to be a very big, buff, strong man. He's actually bigger than Captain America, Steve Rogers, the real Captain America. Why is everyone drawing him like he's a thin twig? Did I miss something? I thought he still has all those powers. Yes, I know he got revitalized from his injuries and all that, but I just don't get it. He's supposed to be buff and bigger, and yet they keep using him in all these series, and they use him barely any. And they don't use him well. They use him almost as a joke. And he is not. U.S. agent, I know the writers don't like him because he's a conservative. I get that. But they go out of their way to make him pretty much a useless character. He was so useless in this issue, I wonder why Bucky recruited him in the first place. You know, it's just terrible. And crap hits the fan, and what do? Bucky leaves U.S. agent behind. Why? And it looks like U.S. agent isn't even putting up a fight to get captured. U.S. agent would go down fighting. Once again, miswriting the character, misrepresenting him in all ways. I tell you, the next issue, we're going to get more of the original Thunderbolts. I'm excited about that, to see that. But I'm aggravated that Marvel keeps treating the U.S. agent like a joke. I know they don't like him. He's supposed to be somewhat of a dislikable character, and I like that about him. But they're treating John Walker as a one-legged bar stool upside down. But you know what? A lot of people have different views than me of this, so let's read one here that is a 5-star review. Was not expecting to care about this book much, since I'm not much of a Winter Soldier / Bucky Barnes, a revolutionary enjoyer, but I love the Hellhunters and Ghost Rider 44. So I thought, why not? I enjoy the ride in this issue, and it had me immediately hooked to the book. By the way, I also don't like Sharon Carter under this new persona as the Destroyer. I think, so, you know, I don't care for that. I like her as her. I like how personal the conflict between Doom and Bucky feels. I like the Black Ops direction and the real sense of powerlessness the good guys have here. Even dragging Romero out of retirement isn't going to be enough to stop Doom's takeover. Yet Bucky and his Thunderbolts persist. Be a wrench. I have to admit, I liked that part where he's told, be a wrench. It was a great moment, and one I'm going to add to my list of sayings. Great series so far. Makes me want to go back and read the previous Thunderbolts book, which I initially passed up when it was on the shelves. You know, I like that. That one line, be the wrench, was, in my opinion, a really, really cool take there. So bravo to that. Let's find one that's more mid-level here. Okay, 3 stars. I don't know. There's something so uncanny about seeing Hive Mind doing a kind of decent book. And they really, that's it there. I want to know your thoughts. I know I'm a little pissy on this one but it's been a continuous issue with me with how they treat the character of the U.S. agent. What are your thoughts on this issue? The story's not a bad idea, though. I gotta give it props there. I just wish they would do better characterization. I got 2 more to go. I know I'm running long on this one. Let's talk about The Incredible Hulk number 23 with 109 ratings with a 4.0 very positive score. Yeah. Writer's Philip Kennedy Johnson and artist is Nick Klein. We're continuing as Charlie tries using her new skinwalker powers to make a friend. Her own skin then is stolen by a servant of the eldest, and Hulk comes to pound that person into pieces. Hulk actually squeezes that person out of the skin, which was sort of cool. The search for Doctor Strange is continuing, and towards the end, the Absorbing Man gets recruited by Hulk's enemy. It's an okay story. I don't know. I think this direction isn't the best for me. I like a little bit more classic Hulk. I don't mind some changes like this once in a while, but I think this was going a little long. I gave it a 7.3, so not terrible, but I don't know if it's one that's really keeping me gripped and going. I'd like to know, do you enjoy these runs like this that are more dark and mystical with Hulk? And I know it's an area that honestly that probably hasn't been explored as a lot of the other ones. I get that because a lot of people don't realize the mystical elements of and how he can see what he can see and things like that. On top of that, for example, a lot of people don't realize his healing capabilities in the general population. I think his healing abilities are better than Wolverine's, personally. We've seen him come back from bones and everything else. So, interesting to see some other people's takes here. And we're going to finish it off today with one that's no slouch by any means. Is G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue 315. It has only 25 ratings. More people need to be reading this book. It's got a 4.0 rating. I gave it right dead on, an 8. I get it there. As I said before in the previous videos, G.I. Joe was dwindling a little bit for me. Too much into the mind control, this, that, constantly. But this one, man, we had all the factions coming to a war, and we have the aftermath of that. We have Cobra Commander captured by Destro. Yeah. The writer is Larry Hama, and artist is Chris Monahan. And I'm telling you, if you are a G.I. Joe fan, you've been neglecting this series. I know the other one is great. Don't get me wrong. The other one is fantastic, but this one is no slouch either. It deserves better. The fate of Cobra Commander here, as Destro has captured Cobra Commander. He's a prisoner of war, and his life depends on the Baroness's survival, because the Baroness was shot and not looking so good. And we knew Destro was going to take it out on Cobra Commander. The aftermath of the battle is here, and Destro is picking up the pieces, as well as the other factions, but Destro seems to really get the edge here. Good art, really good story development here. I'm sorry, but G.I. Joe is on fire. And, I mean, the more you know, and knowing is half the battle. You should be reading this one. If you're not, and you're any kind of G.I. Joe fan, you are missing out. I know, I love the other series. The other series is better, but this is no slouch. This has been darn close. This is probably the best series you're not reading right now that you should be checking out. I like to end on a positive note. Isn't that good to hear, right? And I'm going to tell you what, there wasn't a whole lot in the comments, but it makes sense. I mean, we only had 25 ratings, and people aren't reading this. That makes me sad because, usually it means bad news for a book. Check this book out. Keep this book alive. With that said, you know what? There's lots of people out there. Maybe take a moment to tell somebody you appreciate them. Maybe talk to somebody that you have a grievance with. See if you can work past that. Our days are all numbered. Let's try to bring everybody to the glory. Let's try to bring everybody up with us. Let's bless each other. Let's help each other out. I was very lucky just last week. A young gentleman was playing guitar. He wanted to start playing live for his church, but he didn't have an amp. He couldn't afford an amp, and I was fortunate enough to be able to give him one. Little things like that. It might not be much to us. It wasn't a fancy, expensive amp. It was a small amp, probably like $100. But it meant the world to him. And, sometimes we got to remember, just because it might not seem like a big deal to us, it might be something big to somebody else. So please go out and bless some others today. And just remember, we're all in this together. Thank you, everybody, for your time. I hope you have a great day. And until next time.